Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 11th episode of Sheepdog Brotherhood. It's been an exciting ride. Brett, I didn't get to tell you that this week. I was walking down the street. Somebody walked up to me randomly and was like, "Hey, I think I saw you from a podcast."
No way.
No, exactly. No, that did not happen. That didn't happen.
That's impossible. That would surely be like winning the lottery.
However, I did have somebody come up to me and they saw somebody that I know, right, that I'm connected to on LinkedIn, I bumped into. And he's a Marine and came up to me and was like, "Hey, I saw that podcast you did and I saw the tagline." And he referenced the title about weak men and civilization kind of going to crap. And he was like, "Dude, I love that. You hit the nail on the head. And I think we got another sheepdog that wants to join the ranks of the Brotherhood."
Oh, I just woofed or something. Should we like have a sheepdog woof?
No. You're not Arsenio Hall. Okay.
What did I just do?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Stop that. Whatever I just did, I'll stop doing it.
But I have had a number of people like reach out and like, thumbs up and just letting me know that they think we're on the right track. So, austere beginnings, we'll get there, but it's great to see that people, the message of what we're trying to talk about is resonating with people. So.
Yeah, Doug, I think, there's lots of ways to do things, and we could have just like sat down and over beers, cigars, coffee in the morning, all the above, whiskey, and laid out like this elaborate business plan and, strategic plan and tactical operation plan. Here's what we're going to do. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But I would say we kind of had the attitude of let's just start thinking about things that are in this area of God has assigned as a duty to every man, the dignity to every woman, talk about it a lot, and just kind of get it out there and start getting feedback. Exactly what's happening, like you were saying with the gentleman you were talking to. Because sometimes, in life, we think we have these great ideas and it's like, everybody's going to love this idea. And you start talking about it and no, they don't love it. It's like, you loved it because it was your idea and it was really appealing to you. But the point is that it really appealed to other people. And in this case, what we're doing, did it appeal to other men? And so I guess you could say our first 10 episodes or so is kind of a test case, right? Kind of a beta case of seeing if this is something worthy of pursuing further. I think you and I always believed that it definitely is. But we're starting to get some feedback about that, some confirmation. So that's good.
Yeah. I think, what I'd like us to focus on this week is actually rewarding those people who've been interested, the people who've been reaching out and saying that they want to become, they want to join our brotherhood of sheepdogs, men who are willing to stand in the gap and stand in the breach for not only, I don't want to say society at large, but I think specifically women and women in their sphere of influence. And that over time, we will begin to educate men on how they need to recognize that their sphere of influence is more than their wife and their daughter.
Yeah.
And, that's the goal. But honestly, I am craving some merch, brother. Like I want a t-shirt. That says Sheepdog Brotherhood.
That could be a t-shirt. I'm craving some merch.
So, but I had mentioned to you, I was driving yesterday, coming back from the Home and Garden show downtown Austin this weekend, and I was thinking about
a very manly thing to do.
Yep. Hey, think about who the dudes are building houses and doing the landscaping and the gardens. So stick that in your pipe and smoke it, Brett.
Touche.
No, thinking about the issue that I think our society is in, and maybe we've talked about it in the past. Maybe this isn't. We've touched on it, but just the normalization. Right, we as men should not allow for the normalization of some of the stuff that we're like passing as okay. And so anyway, I wanted to kind of drop that in your lap. Tell me what you think. What do you think of when I tell you the problem that I think that's kind of happening in society today is men allowing the normalization of bad stuff?
Yeah, I'm sure there have been who knows how many research papers, books, et cetera, written about this topic. I think it's interesting. You mentioned before we got started, like, how did we get here? Like, how did this happen? And it appears in a relatively short time frame. Relatively short meaning it didn't happen in a year, but it certainly has happened in our lifetimes,
Mm-hmm.
which in the scale of, human history is like a blink of an eye. So it shows you that however it happened, it can happen quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember back, Doug, I'm old, so you'll forgive me on this. I remember back in say it was the 80s, maybe 90s. I heard for the first time because I was talking with someone and they go, "Oh, that's so PC." And I was like, "What? What does that mean?" I guess I'd been out of the loop. You don't know what that means? No, I don't know what that means. Politically correct. Oh, okay. And I still wasn't quite sure what it meant, except I kind of already knew that it meant, oh, you're supposed to say things this way, not that way. There's an acceptable way to say things and refer to things using certain words and not other words. And I remember even then, I was pretty young, but it kind of caught me off guard. I was like, oh, it's kind of weird, but oh, whatever. So just kind of go on with life. And now here we are, 30 years after that. And I mean, PC, politically correct, seemed like it was just kind of the starter fuel
For
for
woke.
something much bigger.
Yeah, it's the starter fluid to woke.
Yeah. And so kind of as you roll it back and say, how did we get here? It's real interesting. It's always like gradually. That we somebody has that quote, gradually and then suddenly.
Mm-hmm.
It always seems it's like creep. It's like tax creep, or the imagery that people use often is boiling a frog in the water and all that stuff, which by the way is not true. If you ever want to look that up, it's just totally made up. It sounds great. I always thought, no, I think that frog would hop out of the water as soon as it got too hot. And in fact, they will. So anyway.
Science experiment. We homeschool, so that's going to be a science experiment we try.
We'll do that on next week's show. We're going to test this hypothesis. But that's kind of how it happens, right? So in high school, a long time ago, Doug, probably about the time you were born when I was in high school. What was it? I think it was MASH. Remember the show MASH?
Yeah. Oh, the cross dresser. He was always trying to get out of the military.
There was that. No, it wasn't that. I'm sorry. It was some other show, but it was such a big deal that a man was going to kiss another man in a show on prime time television. Back then, I think it was like 4 channels: ABC, NBC, CBS, and PBS, if you can include the last one in. But it was those 3 primary network channels. I don't remember the name of the movie at all, but it was a man for about 15 seconds passionately kissing another man. It was such a big deal in our society. It was, I mean, I think I was like maybe a junior, senior in high school. We actually had like a party at someone's house so we could watch this, right? It was such a cultural, earth shaking kind of thing that it caused that kind of reaction across the country. My point about it is it's whoever, like, let's just call the wokesters, like the people that propagate that kind of stuff began doing it back 30, 40 years ago, little by little. They need to test the water, right? Let's see if we can get it. And they were probably trying to get that kind of thing into a television show for 10 or 20 years. Finally, someone said, okay, we're tired of listening to you all. Go away. We're going to do it. maybe just to get rid of y'all. I don't know. But then all of a sudden, like a few years later, you've got characters in shows who are primary actors who are doing things like that. Then in the movies, it's all over the place. And now it's so accepted to have these kinds of relationships in movies. It's hard to find a movie that doesn't have it. It's almost as if it's sometimes it's shoehorned into a movie and it's so forced, it's ridiculous. It's obviously a political statement. Not, it doesn't like fit with the theme of the movie or the series at all. It's just like, oh, we have to make a statement here. So go ahead and put the two homosexual characters together for 5 minutes and then we'll go on with the real show. It is insidious. It's amazing. And to your point, what happens is we all just kind of got used to it. We're just kind of we were the frog in the boiling water, so to speak. And then we just like, and now we're sitting here in this situation and it's so overwhelming. And we're going like, oh, we need to reverse that. Right. And now it's gotten so far down the path and the rolling rock rolling down the hill is now carrying so much weight and mass and force and speed with it. It's like one man, you think, maybe trying to stand up and push against that simply gets rolled over. And so we all kind of go, oh man, I don't want to do it. Let me just go on with my life. Those are my thoughts.
mean, we are like, I can't even process how, when you and I were in school, high school, college, whatever, science, biology, there are fundamental truths of how the universe is ordered. You could argue, right, if you're not a Christian, if you're not a religious individual, maybe you don't believe in how things came to be. But regardless of whether or not where you think the origin of mankind came from, there have been certain there are certain understood beliefs. There is, I hate using the word science now because it's such like a crappy word, but there were things that were true. Full stop. Things that were true. Man and woman. That's it. No, there are certainly, look, every human is born with 10 fingers and 10 toes. Certainly there are people who are born with 4 fingers and 2 toes, but those are derivate, not a deviation. They're an anomaly, right? The standard is X, but people can be born with a genetic mutation that may cause something to happen differently. That aside, there's man and woman. And now I heard this like wicked, insidious thing on a podcast this week where they were talking about, it was transgender people talking about how they keep quoting the same scripture passage. God created wheat, not bread, grapes, or the vine, or the grapes, not the wine. And then they take that and extrapolate and go, it's because God wanted us. I wasn't built wrong, but God wanted me to partake in creation. And that's why I'm going to cut off my boobs and cut off my tackleberry and, make myself the opposite gender now. Okay. Because I get to partake in creation. And the irony here is baked into who we are as humans. What has always existed is our ability to partake in creation, which is through the mating of a man and a woman yielding an offspring. Like, it's always been there. Mm-hmm. And the sad reality is these people are disfiguring themselves. They're removing genitalia. Mm. And now they cannot partake in the recreate or the creation process that God has given us the ability to do, to make us, in ways like him. So they've got this like weird backwards, but here's the thing. The part that I just do not understand is like the dummies sitting there going like, yeah, no, you could definitely become a woman. Brett, you want to be a woman today? You're a woman. Cool. I do not get that. I don't understand how people just like
Mm,
nod along and be like, yeah,
mm.
no, that's fine.
It's a great point. I've often wondered, do some of the politicians who, at whatever level, who will be out there advocating for all this kind of insanity, do they also, as they walk off the stage and now they're out, they're off camera, off radio, out of the public eye, and they're in private, do they still really talk do they still really, really, really believe it?
I don't think they do.
Either in private with close friends and family, or more importantly, in their own thoughts. Do they really believe it? I don't believe it. I really don't. I don't, because you have on record many of these politicians who advocate passionately about these insane policies, these insane ideas. And you have records from them in the past when they were completely opposed to that. So you're kind of like, what happened? Like, how did you change your mind? I don't think they did. I think it's mostly they just go along with it because there's power involved. There's also, as you learn painfully, if you advocate now in supposedly the wrong politically correct direction publicly, how you're going to be shamed and screamed at, possibly even beaten up, injured. It's incredible. It just you just reminded me of an article I read which blows my mind. It's about is it called the metaverse? Whatever it is that Facebook created. Meta something. I guess that's why they renamed their company Meta. And where this is all going over time. So not here in the next year, but if you go down the line, if you just imagine all the technology advancements that are taking place, so go 10, 20, 50, 100 years out. The idea is that you could really live your life in this metaverse, and it does become a complete digital creation of whatever it is you desire, whatever it is you want, however it is you feel, whatever it is you believe. So it's completely divorced from the reality of this physical world, and you just go off and live in digital fantasy land. And I thought that is so fascinating, but also, you and I probably won't be here to see ultimately how it plays out. But I think it's a plausible scenario that would be a complete disaster, because you still take, and this is what people just struggle with, we all do. You still take your brokenness into the digital world, right?
Sure.
Your selfishness, your ego, your capacity to do evil. You take all of that into the digital world. Would it really change? Is it truly, just because it's digital, going to be this utopia where
Oh, no
everybody
way. It's going to be a rotten cesspool.
Yeah, probably. Because in the physical world, at least there's some restraints, right? We can see them, touch them, feel them, taste them. We have these restraints, gravity, for example. I mean, we have all these constraints that we as humans have been dealing with for however long we've been human. And to suddenly think we're going to just take that into the digital world and things will be different, I think is a fantasy. I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to happen, but I think the result of that's going to not be what people think it's going to be.
I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't on many days wish that there was some sort of like EMP, electromagnetic pulse, that like wipes out the internet. Granted, I wouldn't have access to my bank accounts anymore, but like a lot of the crap that has just
Yeah.
infiltrated our society, like it would go away. Right? I mean, my daughter watches like, so I showed her today Looney Tunes,
Mm,
right? Like Porky Pig and Bugs
mm,
Bunny and Elmer Fudd and Daffy
mm,
Duck and the
mm.
like cartoons. The music, there wasn't a lot of talking. Sometimes there was, but it was like classical music playing in the background. Like things are just simple.
Yeah.
Just versus, cartoons that are trying to convince you to, you know, just weird stuff that is trying to get normalized. And they're starting at such a young age. I saw a video. It was Mr. Rogers singing. This is, from back in the day. Mr. Rogers singing about boys are boys. They're born boys and they grow up to become men. And girls are born girls and they grow up as girls and then become women. Like that guy would be tarred and feathered today.
Oh, canceled.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
so
Yeah. And that
so
wasn't that long ago. In the scheme of things, that
mhm.
wasn't that long ago.
So okay. So we can go on and rant and talk about all the crap that we're disgusted by and wish
Yeah.
was different. But here's my ask: what do we do? What do the men we're bringing together here in the Sheepdog Brotherhood? What is it that we can do?
This is so interesting because you see like big public displays of advocating for something. So in the circles that I travel in, before the overturn of Roe versus Wade, it was the annual March for Life in Washington D.C., which
Mm-hmm.
is now kind of morphed into. They still have it, but it's for obvious reasons. It's not as big, and now it's kind of morphed into a June 22nd celebration of the overturn of Roe versus Wade. These are all great things. I think there's like a men's million men's march or something like that. I don't even know what it's about, but I wonder without saying I'm not going to go as far as saying there's no value in those things, but I don't know if they have like that deep kind of cultural shifting impact that we need in order to take this back. Because I think what they tend to do is they get a lot of very short-term attention, right? Maybe in like a news coverage or something. Or even the people that are there, there's this kind of motivation that happens out of it. And then they go back home and they get back into the normal life, right? And so I think perhaps the solution, though I don't think it's what people want to hear. I think people want like this, hey, we'll elect a savior. And whether that's, well, we won't mention names, but whoever, someone's going to come in and change all these policies and bam, we'll be getting right back to the way it used to be. Yeah, I don't think so. Um,
I think the
you've got,
toothpaste is out of the tube at this point.
yeah, you've got, let's see, what are there in the US? Like 360 million people or something like that. So probably 275 or something like that are adults, and probably half of that. So you got well over 100 million people who strongly believe, and granted that would be on a scale, but they believe in these kinds of, if I may say so, insane ideas. And you're not going to change that by electing whoever to whatever office, no matter what level, local, state, national. It's become a cultural thing. And I think that's the crux of this, and also just where it's like, oh dang, this is going to be a long-term war, a slog. Because look, they being the group with the insane ideas took the high ground, and they spent a lot of years doing it. They did it very strategically, and they were patient and willing to like just keep kind of like trying these things, try these new laws, put this into media that affects, which is now, like you were saying, down into our children's television programming. It's in the public schools. Heck, it's even in the private schools. It's in your corporations. It's in the news. It's all over the damn place, right? And so it's like, oh crap, the enemy has really stormed the gates and they are inside the castle and they're strong. And so it's not a question of like, oh, let's just elect one person and off we go. This is like cultural change. And so I think of it as like there may be 350 million people, half of them men, but I think of it's like one at a time. So I was referencing the ball rolling down the hill a while ago. It's the Sheepdog Brotherhood's it's like way at the top of the hill. It's really small right now. And I'm not saying it just has to be the Sheepdog Brotherhood, but things like this, right? Has to grow slowly over time. And then, like anything, once the numbers reach a certain point, and I don't know what those numbers are, Doug, but once they reach a certain point, it starts to have influence, right? Just doing the right things. And all you can do is control what you can control. But if you work on that, you think about it just in your family, your circle of influence, your friends, your community, and just stay focused there, and you do a good job and you're effective at it, and you multiply that times thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of men, then I think you start to see the barbarians being kicked out of the castle and sent back to Never Land, where they came from, fairyland, fantasyland,
Yeah.
weird land. So anyway, I think it's more having that discipline and understanding and not looking for the quick fix, which is so tempting. It's so tempting to think you can elect someone and bam, everything will be solved. So I'm just going to go back to living my life like I want to. I think this is a big deal that we're in. I think it's plausibly culture, civilization kind of ending stuff over time. It always has been in human history. I think this has to be taken like one day at a time, one man at a time, slowly over time.
I think, again, not to bring it back to merch, right? But I think,
dude,
look, all right,
I just laid down some Play-Doh on you there, and you're talking about t-shirts.
because, all right, what is on your shirt right now?
Boomer Sooner.
So Oklahoma. You love musicals, and you loved the musical Oklahoma, and you love it so much. I know I'm kidding, but
that's true though.
You love it so much. You're wearing it. It's emblazoned across your chest, and as you go out into the world today, people will see it and know that it's something that you stand for.
Yes,
something that you believe in.
I'm a fan of Oklahoma Sooners. It's not the musical, Doug. It's the Sooners.
Well, your secret's safe with me. But that's why I think, a very small first step is to allow people the opportunity to kind of wear with their mouth shut, but to wear a thing that they feel that they get behind the message of. Right? Like if you like Nike, you walk around with Nike, and you see somebody with Nike stuff, and you're like, oh, the guy likes Nike, or Air Jordans, or, insert any brand, right? If you're a woman and you've got a Gucci purse, you're like, oh, she likes Gucci because she's wearing it, and I know what it is. And I think that it's an opportunity for someone to kind of maybe put a flag in the ground and say, like, I believe in this enough that I'm going to give some of my hard-earned money, and I'm going to wear this out into public. And it gives somebody the opportunity to maybe take a little stand and say what they want to say without having to confront someone. And maybe somebody says, "That's cool, man. What's that mean? What's that all about?" And you have that opportunity then to share your thought with it. And maybe, just maybe, that person, may want to be a part of it. Because people know what sheepdogs are. People understand the idea of a brotherhood. And I think seeing that, with some of the taglines we've been kicking around, seeing that on a shirt, somebody might go like, huh, that sounds kind of cool. What is that? Like, I know me, and maybe it's because I'm a marketing guy, but I've definitely seen the logo and be like, dude, that's an awesome logo. Like, what is that? Oh man, my buddy does this thing and blah blah blah. Right? It leads to a conversation, and that's ultimately the first step. That's how we can begin to change things. Is you don't have to be on the front line. You don't have to be at the Capitol, yelling and screaming about how things are changed. You don't have to be at the school board meeting yelling. You can certainly do those things, and we hope that you do take the stand, that you stand up and advocate for the things that you believe in. But maybe that's not you. My wife, she's been on the podcast, you know her, tiny little thing, absolutely stunningly beautiful. Hates talking. Like, we were at the home and garden show yesterday. Like, there's vendors everywhere. She like so stressed out. Like, she's got to like put her head down because
Wow.
like that stresses her out. Like, people that she doesn't know talking. Me, I'll talk to a wall. I mean, like that's easy.
I've seen you do it, dude.
Yeah,
That's amazing. Yeah.
It's because my wife has a master's degree and she's very smart. I, on the other hand, do not. So that's why I'm just a big dummy.
No comment.
But it's not for her. Like, she's not the kind of person that's going to want to go and like storm the castle and fight back.
Yeah.
She would do it silently through her actions and through Anyway, that's my thought. And I'm sticking to it.
But it's interesting, wearing the T-shirt or wearing the hat or putting the sticker on your car. All these things are ways to, in a very interesting way, to speak to a lot of people, right? So imagine that T-shirt, for example, the Sheepdog Brotherhood, front, back, whatever, but then that quote with St. John Paul II on it, clearly written out. Imagine you're standing there at the grocery store. We're here in Texas, so I'll say at HEB. And you got that shirt on, and this dude is behind you, and he reads this quote, which he undoubtedly, very unlikely, has ever heard before.
Mm-hmm.
God has assigned as a duty to every man the dignity of every woman. So before he even thinks about like tapping you on the shoulder and saying, dude, what is that? He's already reading that and being like, whether you agree with the statement or not, you can't be left unimpacted by it, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, that is a profound 14 words. There's a lot of power there. And so, as you were saying, let's say he decides to tap you on the shoulder. Wow, you could have a really interesting conversation. But it also gets into the lane of you have to have courage to do these kinds of things, because in our completely insane world, you're also very likely to have, Mrs. Feminazi come up behind you, who, rather than being kind and charitable and reading your words and just kind of going, oh, what an idiot, decides it's time to make a scene, which, many on the insane side of the fence tend to like to do because they're selfish teenage children, sometimes even younger than teenagers. That's what they act like, at least. I don't need a man to dignify me. I'm dignified in my own right, Okay. Well, that's going to happen to you sooner or later. If you're wearing this stuff out, you're going to be persecuted. And so, you can have your answers for what to do with that. There's lots of different ways to approach it. My approach would probably be to smile at her and, say hi and completely ignore her. Because just as you can't change the minds of, completely unbelievably immature teenagers, you can't change these people's minds. They're so bought into the dogma of wokeism that you're probably wasting your time, and you're probably actually make a better example to other people around you by letting the little teenagers scream like a little whatever, while you just maintain your composure and dignity and act like a real man. sometimes courage is keeping your mouth shut. So anyway, that's going to happen. So you have to be willing, if you're going to put that shirt on, to know that that's a real possibility, especially if you live in certain parts of the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here in Dallas, would that happen? Possible, not as likely. Down where you are, Doug, in Austin, certainly more likely
Mm-hmm.
to happen. Out in California, certain cities, almost certainly going to happen. So anyway, you have to be willing to step into the fire there and know that that's a possibility. But I would also say, I don't care about her. I'm trying to wear that shirt to attract the kind of men that we want. So she is not my customer. So whatever. I want men like you and me who know that something's wrong, don't quite know what to do about it. They have that same kind of feeling that you and I have had the past few years as we discussed what can we do about it. And then they read that shirt and go, this sounds like a guy I need to talk to. I'm going to tap him on the shoulder. We got about 2 minutes here while they're checking out the groceries. I'm going to find out what this is all about.
I think the shirt needs to come with a trigger warning, or just like a, just a warning of some sort that says wearing this T-shirt may be hazardous to your health.
Beware feminazis.
Yeah. Well, look, but I think maybe that's something that we include as part of the purchase of these shirts. We give someone, here is how you could handle this, right? You could say, not like if you're getting screamed at, right? Don't engage.
Yeah.
Don't yell back, obviously, because we want to show that we are different. And the best way to handle somebody who's yelling and screaming at you is not to yell and scream back, because nothing good comes from that. But right. Maybe we do offer some hey, look, if you get this question and someone truly a woman who you think may not agree with what it is you want to stand for, actually wants to have a conversation. Here's some good talking, helpful tips that we could share. I mean, I think that would actually be that's actually doing something that can make a change. That's doing something to change how we are viewed and how we engage with other people, and maybe start bringing about a change.
Yeah, it's a good point. And also think about this. If it's the particularly, aggressive feminazi type, a woman, and on the back of your shirt, you've got something that you believe in and that you're following and you're trying to get better at, and it says God has assigned as a duty to every man the dignity of every woman. Guess what? That includes that pink-haired young feminazi who's yelling at you right now. Mm-hmm. Ouch. How do you dignify her in that particular situation? That's the kind of thing that should be running through your mind, right? So you're right, Doug. It's like, rather than trying to just hope men can figure this out on the fly, we should be thinking through these things and offering up examples of how to handle situations like that. Because imagine, as always happens, people are watching, right? And so they may not say anything, but they're observing what's going on. And if they see that you have that on the back of your shirt, and they see that you handle such a situation in a way that dignifies that woman who is frothing at the mouth and screaming at you, then they go, man, that guy's for real. He is walking the talk. Mm-hmm. And I want to know more about what that's all about.
Yeah. Because, it's not just men that are going to see that. Women are going to see that and be like, of course, you'll never, honey, I was at the grocery store. This dude just standing there with his groceries, wearing a T-shirt. I don't even see what it said, but the woman started screaming about him. And when he turned around to talk to her, I read the back of his shirt. She was just screaming about him. And all his shirt said was, God has assigned the duty of every man, the
dignity.
The protection of the dignity of every, or I always keep adding that word. Why do I keep doing that? God has assigned the duty of every man. It just goes
back to what you said a while ago about you're just not smart enough.
God has assigned the duty of every man. It's the dignity of every woman.
It's 14 words. You can do it, brother. Come on.
God has assigned
as a duty
to every man the dignity of every woman.
of
Okay,
every woman.
I got that.
I believe in you. I think by next week you're going to have this down. I think we should have a little quiz and see if you can do it.
So, yes, this week I want to roll out the start making some of these, and I want to get some to the people who who had partaken in the Do Something Hard challenge, and reward those folks. So,
can we participate? Were you not allowed? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, hey, I think this is a good stopping point for today. It was, as always, I enjoyed getting together and talking. Hope you feel better.
Thanks, sir.
And now you can go watch your musical, Oklahoma.
There's that, and you've got 7 days to practice those 14 words. So I believe in you, and I believe even if someone of your intellectual caliber that you're going to be able to tackle this and manage it, and I think you're going to succeed. I'm just affirming you. I believe in you.
Thanks, Brett. I appreciate it. And with that, have a good day.
You too.